The bush has long been seen as an icon in Australia, idealistically portrayed in countless poems, songs and stories as the heart and soul of Australia. In the past, the landed gentry were seen as the privileged in a country of wide open spaces and big dreams. The notion of equality and a fair go for all is bound up in this romanticised view of the outback. The more recent images of rural Australia include bank closures and foreclosures, chronic drought and urban drift, poor telecommunications and troubled health services. People in the bush are no longer viewed as the heart of the lucky country, but rather the poor country cousins. While neither view is accurate, it is true that rural and remote Australia suffers in many areas. Mean household incomes are lower, job opportunities are limited and shrinking, and education standards are lower. Despite the Queensland Government's continuing commitment to ensure that all students, no matter where they live, have access to a range of high-quality education and training programs, students in rural and remote Queensland continue to perform worse than their city cousins across the educational board. A plethora of initiatives aimed at improving these results has shown no significant change. NAPLAN results are consistently lower in rural and remote schools, with results consistently decreasing the more remote the school is. Results in Year 12 and higher education are also much lower amongst students from rural and remote areas. Census and other data reveal that income levels for rural communities are well below those in metropolitan cities, with average household incomes in about 80% of Australian rural towns and shires at least 10% below the national average. In almost half of all rural areas, average household incomes are 20% or more below the national average. In addition, the proportion of Indigenous students in rural and remote schools is far higher, bringing with it a range of issues and concerns. Experiences before school age result in students in rural areas tending to enter school with a much smaller vocabulary and phonemic awareness than those in the city. It has long been accepted that the teacher in front of a class has the most impact on the learning that occurs in that class. It is imperative that all teachers in Queensland have the skills and abilities to make a difference to at-risk and vulnerable students. In 1996, John Fleming was employed as principal of Melbourne's Belfield Primary School, one of the most disadvantaged schools in metropolitan Australia. In that same year, the Victorian Government introduced a scheme of school reviews to measure student performance. Over 80% of the students failed to reach the benchmarks. By 2005, the students were at the top of the statewide results. A number of schools have introduced the Fleming method of explicit instruction with great success. The Northern Peninsula Area State College in far north Queensland showed the greatest student gain in Queensland in 2012, while the Kununurra District High School has shown significant improvements introducing the Fleming method. Teacher education providers should be required to teach a uniform pedagogy throughout Queensland, one that is based on sound research and results. With the advent of the national curriculum and the classroom-to-classroom units that go with it, teachers finally have a uniform curriculum in Queensland state schools. Now is the time to get that pedagogy right as well. In an age of inclusion and equity in education, there needs to be a way to address this imbalance between rural and urban results.